Now it's time to begin our formal program. The first thing I want to do is provide you a report on joint venture and do what I'm joined now by the co-chair of joint venture, San Jose Mayor Chuck Reed.
Good afternoon. Chris and I are very proud of the results of joint venture's efforts over 2 decades. But we want more. We're never satisfied in Silicon Valley. You always got to do better. And we, Chris and I and the board of directors, want to expand our impact on the Valley well beyond what we can do today. And that's what we'll talk about here in our co-chair's report.
So we're speaking on behalf of the entire board of directors, some of whom are in attendance today. So if you're on the award of the joint venture, can you please stand up and be recognized? I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day jobs to serve the region as a whole. Chuck?
Joint venture is celebrating its 20th anniversary. 20 years ago, when we created this organization, we were worried about Texas and Japan. We thought they were going to take our title away from us, knock us off the top, and we were quite concerned about the future of the Valley. Well, 20 years later, we're still #1, and we can be proud of that. But it's not just Texas and Japan we're worried about today. There are cities, states, and countries all over the world that would like to be the joint venture, the Silicon Valley that joint venture represents. So we have to run harder, we have to run faster, and we have to do more because the competition is much larger. And 20 years later, we're still on the same mission to make sure that Silicon Valley stays on top. And we're trying to figure out how to do that going into the future. Chris?
So as a board, we talked about what should we do with our 20th anniversary, and what might do to observe it. And of course, we thought about throwing a party. That's what you do on anniversaries. Or have an event that looked back at all the achievements we had done over the last 2 decades. But the more we talked about it, the more we wanted to focus on what we could do for the future, rather than looking backwards. So our 20th anniversary present to ourselves was to actually do a strategic planning process and look at the very important questions and fundamental issues facing us. Where do we want joint venture to be in the next 20 years? What do we want joint venture to look like? And how can we take everything we value in this organization and make it even better?
The simple description of what we concluded was we want joint venture to have a broader reach and a bigger impact. The board decided that we ought to launch a campaign over the coming year to expand our capacity, to increase our ability. We've calculated it'll take about $1 million to do that. We want joint venture to expand its work scope and include more research and analysis of Silicon Valley issues relating to governance, the economy, and our quality of life.
So now the purpose of the $1 million is to be the seed fund that will be used to develop new capacity at joint venture. Don't think of it as a one-time infusion of cash, but really an ongoing effort to increase the capacity here. Think of it as an angel investment, in other words, enabling your money that will help jumpstart an organization or new practice. So this $1 million will be used to add new senior staff that will develop and increase our ongoing development capability of the organization and our ability to deliver major programs. We'll add senior officers to help build the program portfolio and the kind of measurable results that merit the sponsorship from major foundations. But that's not all. We're also making another major announcement today. At the same time we build our program capacity, we are also taking concrete steps to grow and expand something joint venture has been especially known for, and that is the research and analysis we provide.
You've seen some of our research on full display here today in the form of the Silicon Valley Index. We've heard over and over again that the index and the other reports we publish have great value, and that more reports in depth and different research would be useful in assessing the state of the Valley and identifying actions that we need to take to maintain our economy.
In fact, as we scan the landscape for these types of research, we realize that there is a real unmet need for solid, dispassionate analysis of Silicon Valley issues relating to governance, the economy, and the quality of life, and even things like feasibility and impact studies. So in this business, we find ourselves needing research, just as in the business world, we find ourselves needing research into how the various things operate in various organizations around the world. So there are many people who would like to study the Silicon Valley phenomenon and develop a sophisticated understanding of regional dynamics. And let's face it, the whole world is studying Silicon Valley and trying to be like us, and yet there is no institution right here in Silicon Valley devoted to intensive study of our complex ecosystem. So we see a need for a new research organization devoted to the study of Silicon Valley and the complex determinants of innovation and competitiveness. In our conference today is any indication, it seems clear that the future of our nation is more and more wrapped up into metropolitan regions. And it depends on the ability of these metroplexes to find answers to really hard questions surrounding governance and decision making. So Silicon Valley will always be at the front of those decisions, and it seems logical that this is a thriving place to start an institute for Silicon Valley to delivering this cutting-edge research.
So today, we're here to announce the launch of a new institute to be housed with joint venture, which will report to the joint venture board of directors. For now, we're calling it the Silicon Valley Institute for Regional Studies. That's our working title. During our campaign, we'll reach out to Silicon Valley's visionaries, and with the right level of contribution, the name is negotiable. So you all have a chance to step up and help us with this endowment.
It's very exciting to contemplate this kind of growth and expansion for joint venture. We're convinced we need joint venture now more than ever, and it will only intensify over the next 20 years. So the question is, how is it going to happen? Well, as we mentioned, we're mounting a campaign over the next year to assemble a seed fund of $1 million, which we will leverage to become accretive to the overall organization.
In true joint venture spirit, we have full participation from the board. Some are contributing a little, and some are contributing a lot. And we're pleased to announce that we now have pledges or money in hand totaling $500,000. That means we're halfway to our goal of $1 million to start and launch this venture. The next step, of course, is to widen the circle, invite others to join us in this effort. Chris and I will be doing that along with Russ Hancock, our CEO, and the rest of the joint venture board.
So over the coming year, you will see us telling the joint venture story to people who aren't in this room yet, people who need to know that we're here and what we can do, and who can step up and take a vital stake in our region's future. We hope you'll help us with that story, and we hope you yourselves will find a way to be generous with us if you haven't already.
That concludes our co-chair's report. It's a forward-looking report setting the stage for joint venture's next 20 years. And by the way, if you're interested in a report on joint venture's work over the past 12 months, we encourage you, of course, to read the pages toward the back of the printed program. You'll find a page on each of joint venture's current programs and initiatives telling you in detail what your money's been spent on, what we're working on, who's involved, and what our latest breakthroughs have been. You can read all about it in the program. The work on joint venture website, of course, that's available year-round.
And so that concludes our report, and now I'd like to turn it back over to our CEO, Russ Hancock, who joined us on stage for the next portion of our program.
Thank you. Thank you.